Welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. We're empowered by love. We transform ourselves and serve our world. My name is Chris Olson. I'm the worship associate today. I use she, her pronouns. With me today is our minister, Rev. Jen Youngson Rue, interim director of faith formation for children and youth, Sara Sautter, Annie Scott, regional lead for the Unitarian Universalist Association, collaborative pianist Suzanne Giordano, and we have vocalists Izzy Kreka and Bob Surins. Working behind the scenes today is UUCE's Technical Communications Coordinator, Kat Johnson. We gather in worship to find meaning and live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we're glad you're here. If you're visiting us today, we'd love to hear from you and invite you to fill out the visitor form as you feel called. The link to that visitor form is being dropped into chat right now.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. My name is Jen Youngson Rue. I use the pronouns she and her, and I serve this congregation as its newish settled minister. I'm so happy to announce that children's faith formation programs are starting next Sunday, October the 3rd. So register your youngsters on our website, and the link is also being dropped in the chat right now. Today is also the last day to enroll in small group connection circles. We used to call them small group ministries, I think. If you have any questions, there's one more drop-in information session today at 11:15 during the coffee hour. And finally, I want to welcome our special guest, Annie Scott, Pacific Western Region Congregational Life Field Staff. She is our person from the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association. And we thank you, Annie, for joining us today to bring greetings and blessings on this very special day. All of you are invited to coffee hour after service today to talk further with Annie Scott, and Sara Sautter. And so I'll let Annie introduce herself.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. And I'm delighted to be here. I have long roots actually in Eugene. I have Harlow Road was named after ancestors of mine. And actually the First Baptist Church was started by my ancestors. Although obviously I am a Unitarian Universalist now. So I serve on a staff in the Pacific Western region with 10 staff people. 5 of us are the program staff. We have a lead, and then we have administrative staff. And the 5 program staff, the 6 out of the 6 program staff, 5 of us serve as primary contacts to the almost 200 congregations in the western half of the United States. So I serve Eugene. It's one of the congregations I serve. And I've gotten to know Daniel Blades, your president, over the last couple of years. I hold monthly meetings for presidents of the congregations I serve, and so I'm delighted to know Daniel and his good work at your congregation. We have a variety of things that we do for congregations. Primarily, our job is to help congregations be as vital as they can be, vital and strong. And we have 4 C's that we use to help us think about our work. We coach, we companion, we connect, and we challenge. It helps us kind of keep in mind the kinds of relationships that we are building. And so I look forward to coming actually to Eugene to be with at least some of you sometime in the next year. And I look forward to that personally, just to take a road trip and professionally to help do some work with you, specifically to work with Reverend Jen in a startup ministry workshop. The last thing I wanted to say is that I'm very excited that you have hired Sara Sautter as your interim faith formation professional. I've known Sara for quite a while, but in particular, one of the first things I did 2 years ago in my job was led a startup DRE workshop with Sara at the Durango congregation. And so look forward to doing some kind of program like that with you all online, however. But I'm delighted that I get to work with Sara again, and I'm just really pleased that you have her as well. So with that, I'll pause, I'll stop and see some of you with Sara at coffee hour.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful, Suzanne. I am Sara Sautter, your Interim Director of Faith Formation, and I'm going to lead you in the chalice lighting this morning. First, I'm going to light my personal chalice at home, and I encourage you all to have a personal chalice at home for your family. That's Woofy with 2 U's. We light this chalice, follow along with me if you can. We light this chalice for Unitarian Universalism. This is the faith of the open mind. This is the faith of the helping hands. This is the faith of the loving hearts. Your children will be learning this year, and I invite you to do so as well.
What shall the children study? What shall the children study? Sophia Lyon-Fahs revolutionized Unitarian religious education in the mid-1900s. And today, some 70 years later, we're still teaching her philosophy. What shall children study in a school of religion? What is the justification for a special institution called Sunday school or church school? In her time, Sophia Lyon-Fahs would have been surrounded by conventional methods, teaching children to become smaller versions of the grown-ups in their faith tradition. Fahs, though, had a different vision, one that would lead children to become who they are and to feel blessed in all they are. What shall the children study in a school of religion? Whatever quickens imagining, she said, whatever awakens sensitivity to other people's feelings, whatever enlarges their understanding of the world and strengthens courage that adds to the love of living. Come, let us renew our commitment to the youngest members of this religious community. Come, let us worship together.
This simple meditation is one that our children and youth will learn in their classes here at UCE. Sara tells us that she likes children to have this readily available in their spiritual toolkit. To practice loving kindness meditation, sit in a comfortable and relaxed manner. Breathe in a way that helps you to slow down and relax. Let go of any concerns or preoccupations. For a few minutes, feel or imagine your breath moving through the center of your chest, in the area of your heart. Metta is first practiced toward oneself, since we often have difficulty loving others without first loving ourselves. Sitting quietly, mentally repeat slowly and steadily. Repeat after me. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. Continue repeating these phrases. Allow yourselves to sink into the intentions they express. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. And now, let's bring to mind a friend or someone in your life who has deeply cared for you. Then slowly repeat phrases of loving kindness to them. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. And as you say these phrases, again, sink into their intention or heartfelt meaning. And if any feelings of loving kindness arise, connect these feelings with the phrases so that the feelings may become stronger as you repeat those words.
The reading this morning is from the book, The Gift of Faith, a slim book by UU minister, the Reverend Eugene, and much of this sermon is gleaned from Reverend Eugene's book. In it, she recounts a story told to her by another minister, the Reverend Gordon McKeon. These are the words of Reverend McKeon. Our camper van is one of the less active members of the family. It does a great deal of "they also serve who only stand and wait" duty. It's reassuring to see it here, ready to burst into activity at the turn of a key. The other day, though, I took the van and turned the key. Nothing. Not a cough, not a tremor, not a flickering light. Nothing. Instant diagnosis, a dead battery. Once the local AAA service had jolted the van's engine into action and a new battery was installed, that should be the end of it. But no, the minister must use this as a parable. Many's the person who leaves their faith sitting idly in the corner, ready to respond in an emergency, a crisis, accident, or untoward happening. Comes the crisis, you leap to your religion and turn the key, but not a whimper, not a cough, or a shudder, nothing. Possibly a little preventative maintenance, a little more regular activity would have kept the battery charged and ready. That's one of the reasons that I like to go to church every Sunday, to keep our religious pieces in working order. It's no accident that my mechanic says, run the car once a week at least. And the minister says, it'll keep your faith in good shape if you practice it weekly. This concludes our reading. On September 11th, 2001, that perfect fall day, planes crashed into tall buildings and our world was forever changed. Hard to believe we marked the 20th anniversary of that awful event earlier this month. Directly after that horrendous event, many of our congregations, churches, and synagogues were filled to overflowing. People needed solace. They felt at sea without an anchor. The world felt chaotic. We were in the midst of despair, seeking hope and meaning in the face of a horrific deed. It felt like a desperate time. Many religious communities responded, many with candlelight vigils, prayer and meditation services, counseling and messages from the pulpit to help congregants sort through the confusing feelings of fear, anger, grief, and even vengeance. I was not among you 20 years ago, and I'm going to invite Kat to now open the chat box. And those of you who were here, please type in the chat box how UUCE responded on 9/11. At that terrible time, the need for spiritual sustenance was felt by many who had not practiced their faith for decades. In the middle of all that trauma, as we acknowledged our grief and our loss, we also counted our blessings. And for many of us, having a faith community was among them. We knew where to go for spiritual support in those awful days. Was the battery charged in your personal faith? Or was there nothing? Not a cough, not a tremor, not a flickering light. Now, if I can figure out how to do this, I'll minimize the sermon and check and look to see if anything's in the chat. There is not, so I'll continue. And in March of 2020, when the reality of this pandemic became clear and the deaths mounted, we began to understand how it would change our lives for a long time. But we knew where to turn for spiritual sustenance, to find hope and to mourn our losses, right here in our faith community. What a gift. Let's look at what people are saying. Is there anything in the chat now? Nope, we'll keep going. One of the parents at my prior congregation, a 30-something father and a teacher, was asked by his peers how he was coping with the pandemic. My church family has been very helpful, he said to a surprised fellow agnostic. Just last night, after the kids were all in bed, a group of us parents from the congregation met together on an app called House Party. We brought the beverage of our choice and had a brief sharing, and then unwound by playing games for an hour to relieve the stress of home-based work, home-based school, and seasoned with a heavy dose of worry. A faith community is a gift indeed, and a gift that we, as Unitarian Universalists, should joyfully share with the young ones among us. Before I move on, a few words about words. Years ago, I adopted the following understanding of the words religion and spirituality, and I share it with you now that you may better understand what the heck I am talking about. Religion comes from the Latin roots religare, ligar, like ligament. My personal understanding of religion is that which binds us together in community. And since I am a children's educator, it's more of a this in gestures. Whereas spirituality is between each one of us and the holy, however you define that, more of a this gesture if you are a classicalist. I'm seeing that people did gather at the congregation in support of each other on 9/11, and I'm happy to hear that. Most children hear the story of God every day. They hear the word of God every day. They hear the word God every day. God bless you. Oh my God, God willing, and even the occasional, God damn it. And most, if not all, children will form some image of God. Children who have never set foot in a church and whose parents claim no faith at all will still form an image of what God might be. These children's ideas about God need to be taken seriously. As a personal example, when my Julia, my now 28-year-old, was 7 years old, her best friend was Emily. And sadly, Emily's sister Erin, aged 11, was dying of leukemia. For months, we folded Emily into our family to ease her own family's load. She was with us every day after school, lived with us for months when Erin underwent a bone marrow transplant, and came along with us for family vacations. But shortly after Erin died, George McNulty entered our lives. Turns out, George was a guardian angel sent by God to protect Julia. His job was to keep Julia safe from disease like leukemia and to help her feel less alone. And he did a great job. For several months, George kept vigilant watch over Julia until one morning he was gone. He no longer was needed by my then 8-year-old. In her book, Reverend Jean reminds us that children are naturally spiritual beings, possessors of magic selves. They experience feelings, intuitions, and impulses. And within their daily lives, they experience religious events. They see dry sticks sprout into new green life. They see a bunny killed on the highway. They say goodbye to an elderly aunt. They watch as their neighbor's tummy grows large with new life. Spiritually, children enjoy a sense of wonder and awe that far exceeds our adult possibilities. They have insights of transcendence and even mystical experiences. In the book, Reverend Jean tells a story about a young father and his 3-year-old son who went walking in a bog. As it was the end of summer and had not rained in ages, neither wore boots, opting instead for sneakers. But soon, the water, they realized, was still present in those sponge-like areas. Vast quantities of rainwater soaked into the bog. Soon the father's feet became very wet, his sneakers filthy, and he began to become irritable. As his irritation built, he looked over at his 3-year-old son. The young boy was delighted in the oozing mud, giggling and declaring, "This is so fun! This is so fun!" How could the father become irritable about wet feet and dirty sneakers? The young child was prayerfully present to the wonders of the moment. And at that instant, the child became a teacher to the father. A word about our contemporary culture and religion. To be sure, our current culture no longer supports the routine of regular participation in a faith community on Sunday mornings. When I, and many like me, myself, was a child in the 60s and 70s, stores were closed and most activities stopped on Sunday. But in the 90s and early 2000s, during the childhoods of my 3 children, Sundays were full of sports, birthday parties, shopping errands, and eventually part-time jobs. Even as a religious professional, it was a balancing act for me to tend to the religious lives of my children, while our culture and eventually their own peers pushed them in the direction of soccer, social events, and consumerism. As a young parent, I personally decided that the odds of them ever becoming professional athletes was slimmer than the odds of them becoming the best person they could be. So I focused on that, and I needed a faith community to help me. I wanted them to grow to be compassionate, moral, and to live their faith in our world, perhaps through social justice or whatever called them. And isn't that what we all want to be, as being part of a faith community? To practice being the best person we can be, to practice being compassionate, being moral, being human beings, living our values in the world with the help and support of our faith community. As you all know, parents are their children's primary religious educators, and in our busy culture, this task is often one that falls to the side. We provide them love, nutrition, healthcare, education, safety, and protection from harm. In our families, they learn lessons about kindness, generosity, and ethical decision-making. These are all pieces, important pieces of the work of faith formation. But tending the spiritual lives of children is best when it is intentional. In our busy, busy lives, a focus, even for a few moments, on faith formation and religious literacy can feel like too much. Religion is often the first thing left behind when busyness forces decisions about how our family time is used. But I am here to tell you that it is simple to add religious elements to the daily lives of our children, and we'll be talking about them over the next many months. Adding a candle to the dinner table sets it apart as special family time, a ritual when we pay attention to each other. Adding a word of gratitude before bed is a religious ritual. And your children will know the loving kindness meditation by heart by the end of this year. Many of our parents were themselves raised in families with no religious or faith traditions. Others were raised in traditions that now feel limiting, irrelevant, and even damaging. When tending the spiritual lives of children, this can lead to a fuzzy or undefined sense of their own personal faith. They may define themselves as spiritual beings, but we are unclear about what it is we believe in. The most effective way that parents can prepare for their role as religious educators is immersion in a faith community. There they find the support, structure, and power of gathered worship and community to help them clarify and establish who they are as religious beings. Reverend Eugene says that it is a faith community where parents learn how to articulate their faith first for themselves and then for their children. For these parents, adult faith formation is very important. As a regular attendance at worship where their faith is shaped and practiced. And attendance and parenting groups, such as the one I plan to offer, based upon this heavily dog-eared and heavily marked up book. Today's parents also need help from all of you. At my previous congregation, families told me they were hungry, they used that word, for the connection, the invisible string that being part of the beloved community can provide for them. Yes, they said hungry, and capital T, capital B, and capital C, the beloved community. Many of them do not have extended families nearby. Many are dual income earners balancing raising children's career demands. They are hungry for what you, their faith community, can provide them. We as children and adults need acceptance and affirmation. We need it first in our families, but as we grow, we need it in other places as well. We need affirmation of what we do, of our skills and talents, but on a deeper level, we need it for who we are. In schools and in workplaces, it's usually our doing and achieving that is validated. Whereas in our faith communities, it's the whole self that is embraced. We need a sanctuary, a place of shared needs and values to open our true selves to both ourselves and others. A faith community is a cherishing community. Here we are held and affirmed, but not the center of attention. We are part of something bigger. It is humbling to be one of many. And humility is a deeply spiritual quality. It is to understand oneself as a singularly beautiful person, just as every other person is singularly beautiful and significant. Children's faith is deepened when they practice and worship alongside their parents and other adults that appreciate and welcome them. Shared intergenerational worship where children can see and feel when adults, including their parents, are moved. In this, it is not what they are told, but what they witness and experience that shapes their faith formation. I know, parents of young children are thinking, I can't feed my own spiritual and religious need if I'm tending to the needs of my children during worship. And I get that. But your community will be welcoming to you as you and your children learn. Personal experience. Years ago, when I attended a new church with my family of 3 children, I arrived, of course, a little bit late. It was not easy getting out the door with a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and an infant. Arriving late, the ushers had already taken their seats. So I sat myself in the only open area I could find, near the front and on the left of the pulpit. Kind people moved aside to make more room for my small parade as we took our seats. They handed me copies of the order of service and a hymnal, and then quietly returned dropped toys and hats. A few moments later, as we were all just settling in, Everyone in our row and the row in front of us and the row behind us rose to deliver the anthem. We were sitting in the choir, and not a soul had done other than welcome us. My children were enthralled with the singing all around them and above them, and were more than happy to go back the next week. It takes learning and practice for school-aged children to participate in worship happily. It takes learning and practice for worship to be meaningful to all ages. And it takes learning and practice for congregants to be as welcoming and kind as the chancel choir of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Antonio. When I first arrived at my previous congregation, children already sat patiently for the first 35 minutes of worship before they were sung to their classes. But at the congregation where I served as an interim before that one, congregants would turn around and scowl at families whose children giggled and gurgled. It is a process. Reverend Eugene recalls in her book asking adults what they remember of their childhood experiences growing up in a faith community. Rarely do they remember the content of lessons, but they do remember how they felt in those warm and accepting classrooms. They remember ceremonies and rituals, most importantly, and they remember people, the kind older woman who smiled and welcomed them by name, their minister or religious educator with a ready hug. These human connections are the most formative in children's lives. They have a particular potency when they occur in safe, healthy faith communities, places where we can allow ourselves to be more open and trusting. Children thrive when they learn to live their faith in the world through social justice, working side by side with adults at the food bank, making sandwiches to share with the hungry, sharing the gift of children's song among the unhoused, writing letters to elected officials. Some years ago, "It takes a village to raise a child" was a phrase we heard quite often, and it is actually true. Nowhere is that statement truer than in the religious nurture of children within a faith community. It is here that their parents get support and help to build their theology. It is here where children witness the traditions, rituals, and stories of our faith. It is here when they feel connected to an accepting community outside of their families. And it is here, if we are not just lucky, but purposeful, they will return when planes crash into buildings, a parent dies, and they seek ritual and grieving, and when they themselves have children and want to give them the gift of faith. May it be so, and amen.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your considerable joys and celebrations, but also your heartbreak and your sadness. People are experiencing loss and difficulty, sadness, sorrows, right alongside the celebrations and the joys. Once again, we have chosen to set aside the mundane for the spiritual. Usual tasks of a Sunday are put on hold for just a moment so that we can remember the essence of who we are and how we are called to serve. When we turn our hearts toward prayer, we allow ourselves to rest in the arms of a benevolent universe where the mysteries of love and forgiveness and transformation are absolutely possible. And so we entrust ourselves to the ground of being today, to the eternal source of light. O God of many names, open the eyes of our hearts so that we may see the needs of others. Open the ears of our hearts so that we may hear their cries. Show us where love and hope and faith are needed and carry us to those places. This day and every day, may we find all ways to work for peace in our own minds, peace within our families, in our church, and in our world. And may all the children know who they are and that they are eternally blessed. Amen.
We extinguish the flame, but not the light of love, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
It takes a welcoming faith community and an easygoing choir to raise a UU child. It takes rituals, stories, and songs. It takes parents with strong UU identity, sages with warm hands, hospitality volunteers, ministers, faith formation directors, and especially the warm smiles of congregants, all with the goal of raising a new generation of Unitarian Universalists. And until we can be together again, I invite you to hold on to that invisible string that holds us all together in faith community.